Hello, I'm totally stumped with this one. We have an old SharePoint site that we're trying to migrate over to SharePoint Online. I have a document library with 666 files that I need to move to a SharePoint list on the new site. I've tried ShareGate, but it won't move from library to list. Any suggestions other than manually entering 5,700 items, or should I begin crying now?
Wait.
So my first question is, how do we go from 666 to 5,700? And where's that coming from?
Right.
But yeah, those are two different objects. So the bones of SharePoint are lists and libraries. Those are your two structural pieces behind the scenes. And if people are like, well, what about pages? Well, pages are actually a document in a library, a special library, special kind of document, special kind of library. So when you're trying to move content from a library, you're never going to migrate it from a library to a list.
Right.
You're going to migrate it from a library to a library.
A list is an item in a library. A library might be a link to a library on a list, but there's no way for library items to then move to a list. They're just different.
So two things that I'm thinking of, either they're just wanting to capture the metadata around the documents. If that's it, and not the actual documents themselves. You can export that to Excel and then create a list on the other side from the Excel list that they created. That's one option if that's what they're trying to do. But ShareGate is beautiful. There are two different options when you're either migrating content or you're migrating objects. So you're either moving the whole list of the whole library, or you're taking the content from one library, all the documents, and moving it into another library and populating that. So those are your two options when you do a migration. Or there's also site to site and teams to teams, but I'm just talking about the objects. Yeah. And so the if they're just trying to move the documentation, just move the whole library, or use the other option. And if they're trying to put those documents in another library, then just move the content. Don't move the whole library.
Yeah, for the exporting to Excel option. So let's say I do just want to have a list that is a list of all of the objects that are in the library.
Right.
So the 666 items, if that is the true number. First, I would say I was going to start off by saying you either need to add one or remove one. It might not be working because it's evil.
Right.
No, but with the export, so then you'd have the names of all of the objects in there. You'd also have then the URL, the location of each of those objects. I mean, if you're moving content, the URL, the location will change, but you'll have at least a list. When you then import that in and create a list, then you can have the list again of all of the titles and then with its URLs. And I'm sure you could configure, you could script something that creates the list items and then makes the titles, the URL, like puts the hyperlink in for each one of those. But again, I think that Excel, export to Excel, import and create a list based on the Excel, that's your only option. If you are truly, if we're missing something of a value in moving from a library to a list, that is the only way to do that.
Yeah.
If that's what you're trying to do. I go with our initial read that I think it's a misunderstanding of the two completely different container types.
Yeah.
Yep. And feel free to repost the question clarifying how you got from 666 items to 5,700 items, because we're very curious.
I'm now interested in going, this is a question that was asked out on Reddit. I'm actually interested in going and seeing, in knowing the Reddit community, this person must have been chewed to bits on.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. At least we're not
safe space.
Yeah.
Despite the demon, this is a safe space.
Now I need to go look. It's like the car wreck that you got to go see what happened.
I know. I need to go look now.
Oh.